doing some filming and recording because I haven't been before you all long. So I will be uploading another video. Actually, before you get this one, you will probably see another video that I uploaded with me physically of the $1 billion brow and the eye shadow look. Excuse me. I wasn't too happy with that eyeshadow look though, but I am going to be doing some more. Had a requested eyebrow tutorial, and so I'm going to do that. But please understand, I am not a makeup artist. I just do what works for me. But the topic of this audio is toxic relationships, and I wanted to talk about that. I was considering doing a live and talking about toxic relationships, and we actually still can do that. But as I'm sitting here eating my breakfast, my husband made me breakfast. Thank God for him. I wasn't even hungry, but I know that I need to do better in my eating habits. You guys, literally, for about the last week, I have not really been eating well. I'll eat breakfast, which is probably some grits, and then I don't eat no more throughout the day. Or I'll drink a cup of coffee, and why I won't eat anymore until 8 or 9 o'clock at night. Not good. Has a lot to do with what's going on with my body. I am going to be fine. Just continue to pray and send good vibes my way. But I wanted to talk about toxic relationships, and the reason I actually am doing it in audio form is because it came to mind, and I'm not dressed yet, but it's something that I want to speak on, and some of the thoughts that came to my mind and some of the things that I wanted to share with you all about toxic relationships. If I don't do it right now while it's fresh on my mind and don't have a pen or don't have a pen writing it down, what's going to end up happening is I am going to lose every thought, or I'm going to film the video and then all kinds of stuff is going to come back. So let's talk about toxic relationships. First and foremost, I want to tell you I am not a dignitarian on anything. The only thing that I can possibly know everything about is myself, and I don't even know that because God knows more. But toxic relationships, what is a toxic relationship? How do we escape toxic relationships? Are all relationships toxic? Those are the types of things that I'd like to talk about. The last question, all or are all relationships toxic? That's going to be the first thing I want to say, even before explaining to you what a toxic relationship is. The first question I want to answer is this: are all relationships toxic? Do all relationships have some form of toxicity? Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. They do. They have some form of toxicity simply because none of us are perfect. There's going to be some area with some error in it in our relationships. That's why you hear people say marriage is hard, relationships are hard, because it's something that you have to work on every day. And when we work on things every day, we are working on those things so that we will master them, so that we will perfect them, or somewhat perfect them. So yes, every single relationship, no matter how long you've been married, no matter whether or not you have disagreements every day, no matter whether or not you have physical violence, verbal violence, mental abuse, those types of things, every single relationship has some form of toxicity, okay? If you beg to differ, you're entitled to that. But the reality is, every single relationship has some form of toxicity. But the most important thing is when we are in these loving relationships, these good relationships that we want to last, that we want to grow, where we are with our significant other that we want to be with for the rest of our life until we grow old, until death do us part, right, y'all? We have to realize that it is a process. It is work every day. I hear a lot of my subscribers say they don't even want to be in relationships. They don't even want to be in relationships with male nor female because of situations that have happened in the past, and all of that has to do with toxicity. Okay? Now, what is a toxic relationship? A toxic relationship is a relationship that is not good for you. It isn't. It's full of drama. There may be some physical abuse, there may be some verbal abuse, there may be some mental abuse. Any type of abuse that is not becoming, that doesn't make you feel well, that doesn't make you appear well, because we know physical and mental and verbal abuse can make us appear to be not well, whether it is physical or deep within. It'll still come out. It'll come out in your walk. It'll come out in your talk. It will come out in everything that you do. So a toxic relationship is a relationship that has some form of abuse in which you're not gaining anything from it. Now that sounds kind of contradictory when I say that every relationship has some form of toxicity in it. It does. It does. Every relationship has some form of toxicity in it. Do I mean that every relationship has verbal abuse? Absolutely not. Do I mean that every relationship has some form of physical abuse or mental abuse? Absolutely not. What I mean when I say that every relationship has some form of toxicity is every relationship is not perfect. We are constantly, those of us that are in relationships are constantly thriving and working daily, minutes, hours, every day to make it right. You are two people joining together, two different personalities, two different likes and dislikes. So you have to work together and work out that toxicity so that you are able to remain a couple. Now, in most toxic relationships, because there's a difference between having some form of toxicity in a relationship and toxic relationships. There's a big difference. Toxic relationships are absolutely positively filled with a whole bunch of drama. Whole bunch of drama. Drama that is just unnecessary. If you, ma'am, sir, teenager, boy, girl, young adult, whomever, whatever, transgender, gay, straight, heterosexual, fluid, whatever your sexual preference is, if you are in a toxic relationship, specifically a physical toxic relationship, you need to remove yourself from that immediately. Okay? I can speak on toxic relationships because I've had them. I've been in toxic relationships. I've been in relationships where I was verbally abused. I've been in relationships where people thought they were going to physically abuse me. But you know what? I didn't stay in it. I didn't stay in it. Once I seen anger elevate to a point of no return, that was my cue for exit. And I wish that all men and women, because you know what, you guys, men have a tendency to be in toxic relationships as well. Okay, you guys, continuing back from what I was discussing on the first part of toxicity and toxic relationships. And as you see, it's a new day because I've changed the color scheme. Now, it's actually was sitting on a lighter background, actually. But as I was saying in the last part of the audio, men and women both can be in relationships that are toxic. Men, yes, most definitely can be abused. Sad as it may seem, they can. Some men are so much of a man that they've been taught not to put their hands on women, and they just don't. And as a result of it, they become the ones who are being physically abused. Sad as it may seem, it is the truth. But we're talking about toxic relationships. And in toxic relationships, as I said before, I can speak on them. I've been in a few that weren't good for me. Okay. What ends up happening is it messes up your self-esteem. It can cause you to have all kinds of unhealthy thoughts about yourself, unhealthy thoughts about others. Sometimes having you want to do things that are completely out of your character. What I would recommend is get away and get away fast. If you are a man, woman with children and in a toxic relationship that is physically abusive, I would recommend that you contact, if not the local authorities, because people have a tendency to tell me whenever I say contact the local authorities that people are scared to do that, but you got to do something to get yourself out of the situation. I know where I live, a lot of help is done with a 1-1, not 911, but within different counties, different cities and states, people can actually contact the 1-1, whether it be 211, 611, 511, 411, and get resources that are available to assist you with situations that may be able to rectify the situation that you're in, safe homes and things of that situation. But once again, no one deserves to be in a relationship that's toxic. No one does. Nobody does. Don't you ever think that you do, because you definitely, most definitely do not. Why do people remain in toxic relationships? Some people feel like that's all that they deserve. Some people, that's all they know. Some people witness their parents, their mother and their father, their mother and her boyfriend, father and girlfriend, whatever the case may be, they've seen toxicity coming up and it is their norm. As I said before, every single relationship does have some form of toxicity. We come from two different worlds. I don't know if you guys remember it, but back in the day, there was a book that was called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And I don't technically believe that, but basically what I'm just trying to say is we're two different species. We're two different species in the sense woman and man. Though we have the same things such as eyes, hands, thighs, ankles, toes, fingers, and things like that, ears, we have those things. The makeup is somewhat of different because of the different sex, because of the different sex. So I guess my advice to anyone in a toxic relationship would be to dial the domestic violence hotline. I will put that on the screen so you can contact it. If you're just now getting out of one, I would recommend doing anything and everything to stay out of that pattern. Don't fall back in that pattern. Yourself into some counseling in which they can help you to recognize and notice the signs. If you are a man, woman, boy or girl, because teenagers can even get in toxic and abusive relationships, don't stay in it. I've seen people be murdered. I've seen people be hurt severely. One of the most ironic stories that I actually seen about a very toxic relationship was on Maury Povich. And I seen it actually on Maury Povich, and I've also seen it on those stories where they're talking about relationships and the people end up getting hurt severely. And there was one lady who actually had gasoline poured on her, and then this gentleman lit a match to her and burnt her up, just set her on fire. She lived. But some people don't even come out of situations like that. Don't put yourself in situations where you are in a relationship with someone who is abusive. And abuse, as I said earlier, can come in several different forms. It doesn't have to be physical, it can be verbal, it can be mental, and it can be physical. A lot of people have said that verbal abuse is worse than physical abuse, and physical abuse is worse than mental abuse. Look at here. Abuse is abuse, and it's not to be accepted. Okay? I've been one who has suffered from verbal abuse, and verbal abuse is very hard. The reason verbal abuse is hard is because we are humans and we play over the things that we've heard over and over in our mind. And to be frankly honest with you, that is the enemy's way of trying to steal your joy, trying to get you to think that what that person said about you was actually true. Love yourself enough to get out of the situation. Toxic relationships are not worth it. 9 times out of 10, if the relationship is not going anywhere, if the person that you are in the relationship with is not willing to go to counseling so that you and that person can learn how to communicate and love one another and grow your relationship, the best thing to do, really honestly and truly, is to walk away. Understand, we are all going to have ups and downs in relationships, as I said before, because we're not any relationship where you agree on everything. Where could there be growth? You're going to have some disagreements so that you would be able to grow. I'm not talking about fighting and bickering and calling one another out by name. I'm not out of their name. I'm not indicating that, but what I am indicating is that you're going to have to go through something in order to grow. When you look at people who have been together for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, trust me, they went through something. I don't know if you guys watched on last night, but I watched the Grammy Awards. And in watching the Grammy Awards, I was really, really amazed that Sharon Osbourne and Ozzy Osbourne have been married over 50 years. Ozzy is pretty old now. Ozzy walks on a cane. He has a little bit of shaking. It almost looks like he has an issue with paralysis or something like that. I don't know. But you know what? It warmed my heart to see his wife holding his hand tightly, helping him to stand up, and when we come together in relationships, specifically in marriage, the vows normally say in sickness and in health. And that was just a really, really good example to see them standing together. Another thing too that I want to say about toxic relationships is the ability to have your relationship but not allow anyone outside of your relationship to bring that toxicity within your relationship. And what I mean is anybody. Nobody needs to be in your relationship. Nobody needs to be in your situations. Nobody needs to be in your decisions, specifically if they are something that deals with your significant other. Now, you can get I guess I could say you can get suggestions, you can get counsel, you can get those things, but the ultimate decision comes from you and the other person. Never allow anybody else to dip, dab, and put anything into the eyes, ears, and hearts of your significant other. With that being said, please like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to click on the bell to be reminded of all the videos that I upload. And remember, toxic means to be dangerous. No one needs toxicity or toxic relationships to survive. I'll talk to you all real soon. Bye-bye.